Come on down.
Mr. Chairman, Board of Trustees, good evening. My name is Richard Stathakis. I live at 13883 Timberview Drive. I'm here once again because it's becoming increasingly difficult for me to kind of stay away from these meetings. I really do want to be more involved in my township government. There are a couple items I'd like to talk to all of you about tonight, but first, Mr. Supervisor, let me be very clear about something. I was, and I still am, very disturbed about your calling my home after I addressed the board at this meeting a few weeks ago. You called my house at about 9:15 p.m. while I was on the way home.
Let me explain to you that real
Excuse
quick.
me.
No,
let me finish.
I'll explain to you, Richard.
Excuse me, one thing. I was sitting back there for about an hour and a half, and I never interrupted you one time. And if you could just extend to me that same courtesy.
Let me extend something to you. I misunderstood what street you lived on. I thought you just lived down the block, so when I called, I'd hoped to speak to you. And when I got a hold of your wife, all I said was, if you do me a favor, have him give me a call. I'd love to meet with him to discuss his concerns. Now, go right ahead.
Yeah, I would appreciate it if you weren't so argumentative and just extend me the courtesy of continuing.
Feel free.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, you did spook my wife, and that's why I'm up here. You definitely spooked her, and please do not contact me or my family at home. An elected official does not have the right to drop in on his electors at his leisure. That's the way I feel about it, and that's the way my family feels about it.
But I did send you a handwritten note the next day.
Incidentally, I did receive that handwritten note 2 days after the same meeting, and in your note, and I quote, you said, "No one has ever challenged your integrity or my integrity and honesty," end of quote. Well, Mr. Supervisor, who's to say that we should not do that? Your style of leadership does not exemplify honesty and integrity, and on the one hand, you talk about the importance of listening and working with others, but then you fail to back up those words with action. Talk is one thing, but working effectively with others, the true essence of teamwork, is quite another. Taxpayers remember all too well how you belittled them when you referred to them as the peanut gallery. In case you've forgotten, Mr. Supervisor, you are a paid employee of this township. And we, the so-called peanuts in the township gallery, are your electors. We do deserve better. In addition, the individuals sitting on your left and on your right are your colleagues. You are all elected equally, and while your positions have different titles to us, you are all elected to represent the people. Mr. Supervisor, respectful leaders earn respect. Those who disrespect others get what they deserve. The other point I'd like to mention tonight is the issue of township spending. Actually, I affirm Ms. Filer for actually having the desire to control spending. I think that's terrific leadership. I've seen it from others as well, and I hope I continue to see that. This has been brought up before, actually many times, and has fallen on deaf ears. Why is it that the supervisor fails to see what's going on around us? As Mr. Vyers mentioned actually tonight, municipalities across Macomb County and the state of Michigan are facing tough times, and they're making tough choices to protect taxpayers. Facing budget deficits, these cities and townships are cutting spending. Elected officials in these communities are not rushing to raise salaries, or they're not complaining to the newspapers that they're being underpaid. They are not embarking on massive spending initiatives such as your planned $50 million campus. They're not spending money just because they have it. In fact, they are cutting spending to protect what they have. Oakland County, I think, Mr. Vire, you mentioned, is facing a decline in property values for the first time in recorded history. Macomb County faces a $12 to $16 million deficit and is being forced to cut their budget. Chesterfield Township is being forced to lay off employees, including firefighters. Because of this, these cities and townships, big and small, are reducing their spending. But it's a different story here in Shelby Township. Our supervisor wants to keep spending as if our community is isolated from the economic realities of life. But we are not isolated. The fact that the township's building department is projected to be $500,000 short of revenue this year proves it. The bad economic times are real, and we cannot continue down this path. Yes, our township has been blessed with strong growth in the past. That growth is what supported the ever-increasing township spending. That's the way it was then, and this is now. Today, Shelby Township's growth has stalled. New homes and condos are sitting empty. They're not being sold. Current homes are taking upwards to a year or more to sell. Foreclosures are on the rise. Property values are stagnant and projected to fall further. Businesses here in Shelby and across Macomb County are struggling. People are losing their homes. They're losing their jobs. Some workers don't even have health benefits for themselves or for their families. Mr. Supervisor, your fellow trustees have shown that they understand this. 2 meetings ago, they successfully defeated your push to raise your salary and theirs. That proposal should never have been brought up in the first place. Yes, we all know that you think you are underpaid, but that opinion does not justify your actions. You fought this pay raise to the bitter end. It was only when it became clear that you would lose the argument that you voted against your pay raise. An honorable leader would have voted his conscience, regardless of politics. Honorable leaders don't flip-flop. And an honorable leader would have not told taxpayers that the police and court complex was going to cost $20 million when the real cost was actually $23 million. Who's to say how much farther it'll spiral upward? A truly honorable leader would have given township voters a chance to decide whether or not they wanted a multi-million-dollar complex built in the first place. Mr. Supervisor, in the February 5th, 2005 issue of the Macomb Daily, you said that you have no problem putting this vote to the people. But now, as you have since told the newspapers, your opinion has changed. Politicians are elected to do many things, but we disagree with you on this one, Mr. Supervisor, when you tell the newspapers that you have been elected to make decisions like spending $50 million or maybe even more for a so-called township campus. As I said before, I'm not a politician and I'm not a lawyer. I'm a businessman. The principles of running a township are not that much different than running a business. It all starts with understanding what the people need and then delivering on those needs, period. You may want a $50 million campus and you likely think it's for the best. But what about us, the people of Shelby Township? What do you think we want? You'll never know because you never asked us. You talked a lot about what we need, but you failed to listen. Shelby Township residents need a supervisor who places us, the people, at the top of the agenda. We need a supervisor who's willing to listen as he is to talk. We need a supervisor who values ideas that are not his own. And we need a supervisor who is passionate about cutting spending. And I was happy to hear that discussion tonight. And we need a supervisor who understands how to do it, especially in these times. You know, a couple years ago, maybe it was a year and a half, it was one of you, and I think it was you, Ms. Filer, as I was walking outside, sometimes I'll talk to one or two of you, and you mentioned something about a 3% reduction in township spending. That is a good idea, and that can be done. That needs to be done. That was before times got tough in Michigan. But I'd say right now that times are a little more than tough right now. And yet, as we face tough times, the only thing you seem willing to do is continuing your spending. In business, when revenues decline, we don't increase spending. We cut it, period. In business, we don't give excuses. And I think some of you know that. We get results. In business, when faced with economic challenges such as we are right now, we do not promote the status quo. We develop processes which add value to our customers and eliminate processes and activities that do not. I believe that you're managing taxpayer money, and because of that, you especially, Mr. Supervisor, have even a larger fiscal duty to take responsibility, accept accountability, and deliver results. If the supervisor does not press for budget cuts, then who will? And if not now, then when? I ask you, Mr. Supervisor, the same thing I asked you a few weeks ago, and I want you to remember these 3 values. Integrity. Do what you say. Secondly, honesty. Speak up openly, work harder to understand other viewpoints so that the entire board can work more effectively for taxpayers. And accountability. This means that after understanding what is expected of you, be fully committed to meeting those expectations. And that means that your attitude that the numbers are the numbers is totally unacceptable. If you don't see a need to do better, then you need to step aside and let someone else do the job that can do it more capably and that wants to do it. And by the way, please tell your wife not to confront me on the way out of this township hall. She did that a few weeks ago. And for your information, I am a Shelby Township taxpayer, and I pay my taxes, and I want to be involved more in government. That's why I'm coming to these meetings even more so.
Mr. Vyers,
and I will no longer stand on the sidelines and watch this great township get further off track.
Listen, Richard, you're well over your time.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
You're well over your time.
I
Mr.
appreciate
Vyers already touted you as the next candidate for supervisor because we need a change. Be that as it may, my friend, okay? My wife did refer to you as somewhat condescending to females, but we'll leave it at that.
Actually, I take offense to that. I was attacked on the way out, Mr. Supervisor, okay. And you just need to send that message that I'd like to walk out of my car without actually any more conversation.
Let me just say,
thank you very much.
You've attacked my honesty, my integrity, my honor.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
You've used paraphrases that frankly are attributable to board members up here. I think we all know what's going on. Have a nice night.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Motion by Vyer.
Support.
By Kowal. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone. This meeting's adjourned.